my job this morning is very simple. I intend to just, take the scale of your eyes, for a sector that I think has been overlooked, but is a literal gold mine. All right? Can I have the pointer? So basically, I'm going to be talking about what I call the informal sector. What is the informal sector? The informal sector is the part of the economy or the sector of the economy that is not regulated by the government. So that sector does not pay tax. It doesn't have associations or agencies and all the like. So the people who fall under this category are your petty traders, your painters, your mechanics, your bricklayers, and all of those informal jobs. All right? Those are the people who fall under the informal economy. And you might be wondering why the informal economy. Now, the informal sector. The informal sector, like I said, is the new cool. How many of us remember a few years ago on campus, used to go and take pictures? Can you remember? Three of your friends will pose. One will sit down, another person will stand at the back. You remember? Now, who wanted to date those photographers? Let's be real. Who wanted to? They were like the misfits, Now, but right now, if you call a George Okoro, you know what I'm talking about, right? You know how much we're talking about. That's to show you how the informal sector has become the new cool. Because these are aspects of the economy that have become revolutionized. As in, there are things that we have pushed aside, but we have realized that these parts of the economy have large streams of income. Now, it will surprise you that the informal sector contributes 65% to Nigeria's GDP. 65%. Now, what that means is this. The informal sector, the GDP, Nigeria's GDP as of 2017 was about 350 billion. Now, 65% of that came to about 45 billion. Now, I want you to imagine that there is a market in Nigeria that is worth 45 billion. That you are not willing to partake because it's what? Casual. Because they are the guys who wear the trench coats. They are the guys who, when they come to work, they have to change because, they are not looking cool. But you see, that is a gold mine in its own. The informal sector accounts for, can you flip it for me? Okay, good. The informal sector accounts for 65% of Nigeria's GDP. It accounts for over half of the world's employment. That is, more than 50% of those people that are gainfully employed in the world are in the informal sector. The informal sector also accounts for 90% of employment in poor or developing countries. Why? Because the informal sector in itself adapts easily in failing economies. So here's the point I'm trying to make. Now, when it seems as if, like we all know, everybody's like, the new tenor has not started and all of that. And everybody's panicking. People are running to Canada and all of that. But you see, the part of the economy that is thriving at this time is the informal sector. Because they are the day-to-day needs that you have that have to be met. Your hair must be made, yes or no? Yes. You must sew clothes, yes or no? Yes. You must paint your houses, you must do all of that. If there is an electric fault in your house, you must call an electrician, yes or no? Yes. So this is the sector that is thriving most when everything is going bad. So the point, is to bring our attention to this part of the economy that we have overlooked. I know everybody wants to wear a suit and tie, but if it brings in the big bucks, man, throw it away. All right, so those people, the people in the informal sector, you have the electricians, the plumbers, the tilers, the painters, the carpenters, photographers, videographers, graphic artists, web designers, animators, music producers, flight and booking, tour guides, fitness gurus and tailors and all of that. Now, you notice that there are some of these sectors that I've mentioned that that are supposed to be in the formal sector. Now, why I did not put them in the formal sector and put them here is because a lot of all these things I've listed out here, you cannot be trained in Nigeria in any of these things in a university. I don't think there's any university degree for tourism, to be a tour guide. I don't think there's any university degree for tailoring and all those stuff. But these are needs in the society. These are needs in the economy that have to be met, that are being met. How many of you have that tailor that disappoints but you go back to? Because you need it. Because you need it. So that's the informal. I want to also categorize the things that are needs in Nigeria but cannot be taught or are not being taught right now in our tertiary institutions. Okay? Now, what are the merits? Like I said, it had a huge market. It has a huge market. It doesn't have standardization. There's no painter you have called and you say, let me see your certificate of painting. Or a certificate of what? Of carpentry. Do you get? It's not standardized. So, now that may be a demerit to you, but to people who are in that sector, it's a merit because you cannot monitor. You don't have any way to know if these people actually know what they are doing. So it's easier for you to go into that sector because it's not standardized. You are not going to have to go through a particular training route, a formal training route. It adapts easily to circumstances because, and also, they are not taxed. Do you think your everyday tailor is taxed? Not necessarily. Some are on a larger scale, but on smaller scales, they hardly are. Right? So these are the pros, for the informal sector. Now, how does one get into this sector? Naturally, it comes through apprenticeship. And when we think of apprenticeship, you're like, no, I don't want to do that, that kind of thing. But as I will tell you later on, learning requires humility. Learning requires humility. I learned that early enough, so I can advise on that, Learning requires humility. But let's just look at apprenticeship against traditional learning. Apprenticeship literally can be free, literally. If there are certain crafts that if you decide to learn, you might not need to pay any money. You might just need to work under that person. And you would also earn while you work with that person. True? But traditional learning, you have to pay some money. You have to not just pay your tuition, you may have to pay accommodation, you may have to pay your feeding and all of that. But in apprenticeship, it's almost free. And then you earn on the job with apprenticeship, but for traditional learning, you do not. Traditional learning, it's difficult for you to get placement. Let's not shame ourselves, but if you wrote JAMB more than once, there's no JAMB for apprenticeship. So, and then the availability of jobs, we know that when you go into the regular tertiary education, you know that when you come out, the hustle begins. I had the 2-1, I had the 2-3, I had the whatever, and all of that. You don't have that in apprenticeship. You just can use to, it's as basic as that. Then you have, it's not always need specific. Traditional learning is not always need specific, but in apprenticeship, you are there because that person is doing something. Do you understand? You are learning under that person because that person has stuff to do. But when you do traditional learning, sometimes it has no physical applications in the society. True? Yeah. And eventually, those needs those sectors or those professions that actually are needful in our society that we want to learn under, some of them don't have sufficient trainers, right? But in apprenticeship, it's as good as they are almost everywhere. All right. Now, The point of all of this is that there is a new rave. The new rave is the informal sector, and it has been overlooked. It has been hidden for so long, but I want you to know that it is thriving. There are a lot of people. There's a lady. In fact, I know about 2 or 3 ladies who are furniture makers in Lagos, and they are doing very well. There is a lady who does painting, doing very well. In fact, there's one who does wall graffiti that was moved to Dubai to do a job. Those were the things that we have overlooked, and we are drawing our attentions back to this part. There are also the ones that are soft skills that you can learn on the internet. You can learn on YouTube. You can learn on several websites, on Coursera, on EDX, on MIT's training portal. There are several of all of those categories or industries that we can involve ourselves in and be able to make millions or make a good living for ourselves. So I just want to encourage you. Like I said, learning requires humility. For you to be able to sit under someone and learn, whether the person is illiterate, whether the person is whatever, if your aim is to get the information, you will need to be humble and learn. And when you do, I know a lot of us here are formally educated. You can use your education to, change the face of that a trade or whatever it is that you want to learn and make it as formal as you decide. But I want you to know that the informal sector is the new cool. I also want to encourage all of us. There's this lady on Twitter. Her name is Moments with Brain on Twitter. She has a list of about 200 websites where you can learn for free. I'm saying this because data has it that by 2020, by the year 2020, which is next year, right? By the year 2020, each person will be producing at least 1.7 megabytes of data per minute. What that means is that there's information out there. All you need to do is to reach out and learn. Thank you very much.